Hello, we are here as part of the Phi Beta Mu Legacy Project. Today we are excited to be joined by Dr. Lloyd Jones. Start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, where you went to high school, where you went to college, and some of your influential teachers.
Well, I'm a native of Montgomery, Alabama, born at Jackson Hospital. Actually lived in Wetumpka for a couple of years. Then my father was also a music educator, Dr. Ed Jones, so we bounced around with his career to Southern Miss and then to Livingston, and then eventually when I was 10 we moved to Florence, Alabama, which is where we resided and I still reside. I attended high school there. At Coffee High School I was in the band with Mr. Gene Gooch, and Mr. Gooch goes way back with the ABA and the ABA and Phi Beta Mu, and then I went on up to the University of North Alabama to go to college. Started out as an engineering major, ended up in graphic design. Got a degree in that, worked in advertising for a couple of years, and had a minor in music. And during that couple of years of working in advertising, which was a very rewarding career, enjoyed it a lot, but I was running my own jazz group, played in a couple of other groups, and so my schedule really centered around my musical activities. And so after a couple of years, I said, I should have just finished that music degree. Went back, talked with the department chair, said, how long would this take me to finish this degree? And that was Dr. Jimmy Simpson, another person who goes way back with all the organizations in our state. And he said, well, in a year and a half, you could have this finished. And so I re-enrolled, finished that degree. And at that point, I had 2 undergrad degrees from UNA, and started looking for grad schools. Got an offer from Southern Miss and Tennessee Tech. And the week that I was to make my decision and figure out where I was going to continue, the assistant director at the University of North Alabama had a heart attack, Mr. Tom Risher. And he didn't die, but he could not function with the marching band in the heat and all that kind of stuff. So the dean called Dr. Simpson and said, we've got to have somebody filling that position. Who do we have? And he said, well, the only person, the person who's been writing all the shows is headed out to go do grad work. He said, well, let's make him an offer. So they made me an offer. And I said, well, if you'll match what Southern Miss was going to do, I'll stay here. So they did. And I ended up staying there in Florence, going to work there at UNA, really as a grad assistant, fulfilling the role of that assistant director. And so the next year they hired me half-time to start teaching woodwinds. The department just grew, and they needed some more help. And so there was a whole lot of being in the right place at the right time and being the solution for someone. Finished up that degree, and by the time I finished, they had me, I was hired part-time as an instructor, and then was hired as a liaison to the marching band because I was writing the shows. And so the administration felt like, well, that's a separate thing from your teaching load. So I got married, met my wife there at UNA, and got married and was about to leave Florence, and had been offered a job to take over from Dan Haley at Athens High School. And Dan, of course, he's a Hall of Famer with Phi Beta Mu, and did great things there. And so during that summer, trying to think of the situation, I think it was that my dad was having he would eat lunch with his accountant. And the accountant explained to him, I think my dad was complaining about him, I had to start writing those marching band shows again, because he was the head director. And the accountant said, you realize you've been teaching so long that you can retire, and in 2 years you're going to be making more money than you did while you're teaching. You're basically paying to go to work. He said, I didn't realize that. Well, let's just retire. Let's do it. So then this time the president called. Said, hey, I need you to be the interim director. And I had no idea what he was talking about, because I didn't know any of this was taking place. So he explained, and I said, okay, let me think about this. And I decided that 1 year of collegiate experience on your record is great for future. That'd be better than go ahead and taking a high school job. I'd just get a year of experience at the collegiate level. So I took over the UNA program. At the end of that year, the president asked me to go ahead and apply for the position. And I did, and he said, you realize you'll have to get your doctorate. Well, I'd already started that. And so one thing led to another, and I ended up staying there at UNA. And I've been there for 20 years. Kept trying to leave the Shoals, Florence area, but kept getting hooked back into that. So in short, that's how I came to where I am now. I've been there for 20 years. We've grown the program from about 140 kids to 250 kids. Our main focus is music education, but all the degrees are attainable there on that campus. And the campus has grown from about 5,000 to 8,000 students and continues to grow. So it's been a very nice ride there. And hope it's not over, hope it continues.
Are there any memorable experiences or moments from your career?
There have been, playing at the conference here that we're all at today. At the ABA conference is always a blast. We've been fortunate enough to be able to take our marching band to the BOA Grand Nationals numerous times and be an exhibition group there. We put a lot of emphasis on making sure that the marching band is something that we can hold up as an example of what a collegiate group should be, and we do a lot of exhibitions. We played Division II football for many years, and so you don't travel a lot at that level. And so we would put our travel dollars into doing exhibitions, and we would go to a lot of high school exhibitions, and then ended up in the BOA circuit. And that's an interesting aspect because that's a different way of approaching the marching band activity that not a lot of people are exposed to in our state. A few of them follow that path, but a lot of our students, they just need to see that as well. It's a bigger world than just what we have here. And so there have been many opportunities to get the students out of the state and let them go see what else is going on. Growing up, my father, of course, I mentioned he was a music educator who was in Colonel Butler's band at Alabama. And I remember as a kid eating with Colonel Butler. He would come down and do honor bands in our state. I think he retired in North Carolina. But he would come back, and when my father was at Livingston University, he'd come do that honor band. And so he'd be over at the house, and we'd be eating supper with Colonel Butler and his wife. Remember that well. My father's high school director was Truman Welch in Elmore County, and so I've always known Truman, and I've always known Milton. And of course, and that leads us then down to Scott Thompson and his wife is Milton's daughter and Truman's granddaughter. So just those music families in our state, being connected into those. And when you're a youngster, you don't realize how important they are to the state. As you get older, you realize the things that they were able to accomplish. And that's why so many great educators have come out of their programs. And I remember playing for Truman's 90th birthday party in a cotton barn in Eclectic, Alabama. And just the sheer number of people who came to his 90th birthday party from his band program through the years was amazing. And so, the thing I think you remember the most is it's just all the people. Just before coming into this room, I was out there talking with Gary Taylor, our AMEA executive director, who I also remember as a kid because he taught in the Florence area. He taught at Brooks High School, and his wife, Beth, was the music department secretary at the university. So I always remember knowing who Mr. Taylor was at all times. The guy that started the band where my kids go to school, same school, Brooks High School, Stacy Goss, who's retired and moved out of state but comes back to events. Stacy's connection was that he was the first director there, but he did his student teaching at Opelika with Ed Jones, my dad. My dad grew up playing in Stacy's father's big band. He had a big band that just played in the region. And so there's always been a connection there to Stacy Goss. So as you get more mature in the music education industry or activity or career, you realize how connected people are. And it's a big world, but it's a small world at the same time. Everybody's kind of connected through somebody. And, so the people are the best part of the career, learning about the people. And, just being at events like this, visiting with them, getting to hear some great bands. It's a lot of fun.
Are there any experiences from your career that left a lasting impression on you or kind of forced you or elevated you to become a better teacher?
I think probably every year there's pivotal moments when you grab on the nuggets, and you remember those when you're young. As you get older, less of a wrinkle is formed on the brain, but they do make an impression. And I think probably the things that made the biggest impression on me were watching the performances of my colleagues, seeing how hard they and their kids have worked to put on a performance, and setting that as a new benchmark. So you know what? We need to be doing that with our program too. And then there's certain students who really will make an impression. And then you just kind of wait to see what they do in the career because you know they're going to do something great. there's just too many to pick. Every year there's certain things that will really stick out, and it's that's just what makes it enjoyable. It's there'll be something that comes out of this weekend, some performance I hear, or some person that I see that I haven't seen in years, and that'll be what I take home with me this time. So that happens all the time.
Is there anything, experiences that you've had that you would love for younger music educators to know, or really anyone?
Yeah, I talk to my students about this all the time, is don't ever think you're done. You just need to keep going and keep learning and keep listening. And that's how we pick up on things. We emulate each other, we mimic each other, and you need to keep getting out there. So it kind of relates to the last question, that even here this weekend, I'm going to see something that I decide, okay, that's what our program needs to do too. It's just don't ever stop. When they think they've got it solved, that's when they start becoming useless to their students and to the activity. Just keep developing. There's always something new. And the old dogs think that, this is how we do it, but there's always things the younger ones are doing too that are valid. They just might be different. And we may not like it either, but it's going to work. One of the things just recently that comes to mind is all this indoor marching percussion. I don't think that's going away, and I have a lot of colleagues, older colleagues, who maybe don't quite understand that and why it's so popular, but that's given the percussionists in all our programs an activity to do that really engages them. It's just very different from a traditional activity, but I've seen it improve a lot of players. I've seen a lot of groups in our state be very successful and start building reputations through that. So I think it's a very positive thing. And I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. When you compare that to what those kids could do, like in the summer, marching with the DCI group, it's a lot less expensive. It's focused on exactly what they're interested in, the percussion side. And there's a whole lot of creative activity going on there. And so that's probably the thing lately that is really caught my eye. And I've judged some of those competitions as a visual judge because I'm a drill writer and how they design and put shows together. But just watching the sheer musicianship, how complicated these things are and how they put them together, that's pretty impressive. There's a lot of creative activity there. So lately, that's been what's kind of caught my attention.
So is there anything else from your life or your career that you want to share, or maybe there are people who acknowledge your thing?
Too many people to thank. All of them have made an impression. I'm thrilled when I see people that I was in school with, whether it's high school or college, who are doing great. I'm thrilled when I get to see what they've accomplished and how they've solved problems and come up with solutions. Just because I knew them when none of us even knew what we were doing. We had no clue. We couldn't solve anything. We were just kind of bouncing around in college. And it's nice to see them in leadership positions and doing great things. I'm just glad I know them all. And how it is in the music education world, not just band, but also in the vocal side and the orchestral side. You meet so many quality people because there's so many quality kids involved in these ensembles. That's usually the best kids in the school. And so it really becomes a very nice environment, very valuable environment. And so, of course, I want to put my kids in it who are now in high school, and I got 2 more coming up who are just now getting started. They'll start beginning band next year. And because of the quality of people that they're around. And to me, that's the legacy of music education, is the quality of kids that are in there. It just kind of builds on itself and feeds on itself. I think that's about it.
Well, Dr. Jones, thank you for being with us today.
Appreciate
Thank you for sharing your wisdom and experiences. And